Morning Luna lovers, it's Claire here again from Sewing by Claire, and today I'm going to carry on with Wilhemina. I've now finished Luna Lapin, and as you remember I said I was cutting out two of Luna and a friend, so one was Luna and the other one was Wilhemina. So I'm going to carry on now with Wilhemina's ears and head and do those on a couple of tutorials for you, just so that if anybody is following and wanted to make those animals, then you can do the same. So what I've got at the moment is I've got Wilhemina's ears, the little mouse, and I've put them right sides together, and I've done the same. So that's the inside lining fabric, and I've done the same with the outside fabric. And what I want to do is I just wanted to put a little snip in just to mark where the notch is on the ears, because that's a folding point. So I'm just going to put that down, copying how we had. You can see that my fabric pieces are slightly bigger than my template. That's the seam allowance anyway, so that we can sew that, just to give me a little bit more to hold on to. So I'm going to use my snips, and I'm just going to snip in the fabric through both pieces. That's it, make sure it's gone through both pieces in order just to mark that notch. And then I'm going to just do the same on here as well. So when we've actually sewn these together, we'll then know where we need to fold these. So that's gone through both pieces as well. Okay, so we have a notch there, so the bottom piece can be out of the way. Then all I'm going to do is take one right side and one wrong side. Make sure we've got the right orientation, because we've got a bit of a curve on here, and that's got to sit correctly. And it does on there, so my lining's a little bit bigger, but that's okay, we can neaten that up. Better to be too big than too small. Okay. And now all I'm going to do is just do our 1/4 inch seam allowance, just starting here, start and stop, and then just go around here and start and stop again. I'm going to do that on both of them. So let's get that done. I'm using a 2.2 stitch length. It's just a straight stitch that I'm using, nothing fancy. And I'm lining up the edge of my fabric with a point on my presser foot, and then so that when I go round it keeps my stitches nice and straight. I'll also use my needle up down function to put my needle in my work so I can pivot, because we've got quite a tight curve to get around here. And as you can see, it starts to bunch up. So if we just release the pressure on that, then it'll just sit straight for us. Do a few more stitches, and then just release again, and it'll just take it round and just release that tension, so you get a nice smooth curve. Keeping it flat. The difference between the size pieces of fabric, we will just neaten up as we, with our pinking shears or doing our notches anyway, so I'm not worrying too much about it. I'm just following the edge of the smaller fabric, backwards and forwards to stop. Cut off our threads, and there we have our ear. So what I'm going to do now is get my pinking shears, and because we're on a curve, I am just going to trim round close to the stitches but not through the stitches, and leaving enough of a seam allowance that when we turn this through we don't run the risk of popping any stitches. So there we go, and that's all I've taken off. It's not a lot, but enough just to turn it round. And then what we can do is just pop this through the other way, like that. Push it out with our fingers, and then get our trusty knitting needle end, or a poking tool if you've got one, and then we're just going to ease those edges round. So this floral fabric's looking quite nice against the mock suede. I have found the mock suede quite difficult to work with, and it's just a little bit stretchy, which you could interface in order to take that stretchiness out of it, but also it's sometimes when you're sewing on this side, it kind of creates friction with the machine bed, so it does tend to hold on to it a little bit. So then what we want to do is match up our notches on the outside, and that's our turning points. I'm just going to use the notch on the outside there. So ears are like this. So notch on the outside is there. Just using that as the fold point. There's the notch. And then what the pattern says is just to create 2 ears, making sure you've got mirror copies. And on the picture of Wilhemina, I get the book, on the front here, you can see that her ear isn't exactly in half. You can see a little bit more of the inside fabric. So that's what we're trying to create when we turn our fabric round. So we can see there we've got an ear that matches Wilhemina's there. Okay, so I'm going to just put you on pause while I just go and do the other ear, and then I'll show you then what I'll do next. So I've just given both of the ears a press as well, just to make sure that they're sitting nice and flat. And I'm following the notch on the outside fabric because I know that that'll give me a mirrored copy. And I am just going to put a pin through the ear after I've folded it on the notch. So I've just found my notch, folded it on the notch there, and then just put a pin in. And what we need to make sure at this stage is that we get 2 mirrored copies. So we've got a pin, a little notch on the outside. So again, I'm going to fold it just there. And then I'm going to put a little pin in that one as well. And what we're wanting to do is make sure that she's got even ears. For some reason it seems trickier on this one to make sure that she's got even ears. So we're looking for the distance between here and here to be the same. And we're looking for roughly the same, the curve to be the same as well. And I think that'll be about right. Just put them back to back as well, make sure they're the same size as well. Sometimes your eyes can be a little bit deceiving for you, can't they? And you think they're not the same size. But yeah, they are pretty much spot on. So the final bit we're going to do now is we're just going to just run a tacking stitch along the edge of the ear here so that we can take our pin out, and that'll just make it easier to handle. So I'm just going to do that both of them. Now with Luna's ears, we actually join these together and butter them right up against each other, if you remember. But with Wilhemina's ears, the way that they're set in slightly further apart. So I'm going to leave them separately and just do one at a time on here, and that will just then hold on, just tack those down so that we've got them. So literally just on the very edge, I'm just going to do a quick little running stitch, take my pin out so we get to that point. That's one done, cut the threads. And then we're just going to go on and do this one as well. As I say, just on that very edge, just so the stitches will be hidden in the head when we sew the head joins together. Okay, so that's it for Wilhemina's ears at the moment. We've just got 2 separate ears there, and we'll move on to the next stage, which will be sewing her head.